Hi friends, I hope your day is going swimmingly. My name is Lily, and this is my podcast Seems Fabricated, where I chat about sustainable and ethical shopping choices and expose the not so pretty aspects of the fashion industry. In today's episode, I will be chatting about going green in a way that's right for you. Before we start, I have an exciting announcement. This is my 10th episode. It's been real and it's been fun. And I still have about 100 episode topics to get through, so I'm not going anywhere anytime soon. I often get a little afraid that I'm too harsh in my podcast, that I'm actually condemning anyone walking into a mall or buying anything with a red sale sticker on it. That certainly is not my goal. I simply want to provide transparency of what goes on behind the scenes. My end goal is to bring ethical values and mindfulness back into the way we shop, and encourage individuals to live more sustainably, as well as throw some juicy facts out there occasionally, just for fun. So today, to prove that I am not an eco-queen, I will be sharing my confessions of what a terrible job I'm doing at being sustainable. To kick this episode off, I'm going to debunk some common misconceptions about sustainable clothing. Myth number 1. Quitting fast fashion will take away millions of jobs. I have heard this argument used time and again, and in theory, it's true.
Wait, what?
Yep, if we all stopped buying new things tomorrow, we would spiral into an economic crisis and millions of people would probably lose their jobs. We might even begin a war. In reality though, that's not going to happen. Quitting fast fashion is a slow process, one purchase at a time. The goal is not to take jobs away from those who need them. It's to encourage companies to pay a fair wage, enforce safe working standards, and make more environmentally friendly products. And it's working. Companies all around the world are listening to what their customers are wanting and taking real action against climate change and improving working conditions. After all, the best way to get a company's attention is to take your money elsewhere. This is also leading to new jobs in developing new technologies and materials that are both ethical and sustainable. Myth number 2. You should replace all your clothing and unsustainable items in your house with eco-friendly versions, like right now. We've all seen those super eco-influencers with zero plastic kitchens and a fully biodegradable wardrobe. But the worst thing you could do is unnecessarily replace items when they don't need replacing. What you should do instead is use what you have until it wears out. Then replace it with more sustainable versions in the future. It can be really hard when you're in the mood for a revolution, but patience and persistence is the key to true sustainable living. Myth number 3. Donating my clothes is a sustainable solution. Unfortunately, donating clothing is much more unsustainable than most of us realize. 80% of donated clothing ends up in landfill. This isn't because the clothes are in poor condition. There is just too much. Not enough people are buying secondhand clothing, so instead of adding to the pile of discarded textiles, it would be best to go into your local charity store and support second-hand retail. So what should you do with unwanted clothing? You can try selling it online or at a car boot sale, swap with a friend, or turn it into something else. Maybe you don't wear a dress because the sleeves are too puffy or the waist is too loose. That's a really easy fix. Like, it's literally my day job. So get your garments altered. If you can't take it to a professional, there are so many tutorials online and sewing communities that will be happy to help. Donating your clothing should be an absolute last resort. Myth number 4. Living a sustainable lifestyle is expensive. It can seem that way when ethical clothing is 10 times the price of H&M.
Bummer.
But if you listen to some of my previous episodes, then you already know. The best thing that we can do is simply buy less. Taking a minimalism approach to our lifestyle is the best thing that we can do for the planet and our wallets. Understandably, a lot of people still struggle when they are only buying necessities. But thankfully, there are many other ways to acquire sustainable clothing and other items. Buying secondhand, joining swap groups, borrowing from a friend, and even learning to repair and make your own. We all have different circumstances: financial, geographical, physical, and otherwise. So what's realistic for one person may not be for another. There may be times when you have to duck into Kmart and buy a pair of polyester pants because you just split yours on your way to a job interview and, forgot to bring your sewing machine with you. Ugh, I hate it when that happens. Or maybe you're a college student living off 50-cent ramen noodles and cheap instant coffee, and desperately need some new shoes for walking across the grubby campus floor. A $200 pair of sustainable sneakers is just not in the budget, so a $10 pair from Spend Less will have to do. Not being able to completely cut fast fashion out of your life doesn't mean you're living an unsustainable or unethical lifestyle. The point is to do the best with what we've got available to us. While there's a lot of eco-warriors out there doing amazing things, when people's passions and beliefs make it onto the internet, things can get a little dicey and judgmental. I have seen this so many times firsthand. A YouTube influencer speaking out against fast fashion was wearing a fast fashion brand in her video. Her followers called her out for it, but it turns out she had bought that item secondhand, which is actually way more sustainable than buying brand new from an ethical company. Her followers were quick to judge and threw her under the bus. They unleashed their eco-warrior fury, and it really didn't do anyone any good. Except for me, I guess, for being able to use this example. So instead of being encouraging, they're just embarrassing for the rest of us. These types of reactions can make people turn away from the concept of a sustainable lifestyle. But it's important to remember that these are the exceptions. On the whole, people just want to encourage others to do the best they can. And that is what I hope this episode and my entire podcast series has done for you. Take away the pressure to be perfect and just be persistent with what you can do. Change comes slowly. We might start worrying. What if I screw up? What if I'm putting this in the recycle bin and it's actually not recyclable? Or worse, what if it is recyclable and I didn't know? sometimes that can lead us to give up right there. To be honest, this mindset held me back from starting this podcast for a long time. The truth is that I am not living a perfectly eco-friendly lifestyle. And sometimes I feel a bit of an imposter syndrome when giving advice and telling people about all the tragedies of the fashion world, when parts of my life are not 100% green. So before I share my confessions, I'll just leave you with this little gem. If you want to make lifestyle changes and are finding it difficult, do this. Reevaluate your own values and the reason why you want to live a more mindful and eco-friendly lifestyle. Once you get that straight within yourself, no one else's opinion is going to matter. So without further ado, here are my confessions. I still store my food in plastic containers. My recycle bin is shared and gets full sometimes before I'm able to put my stuff in, so I end up having to throw it in the regular trash occasionally. I have only recently devised a plan to be the first one to put my recycling in the bin. Aha! But doesn't that mean that someone else will not be able to put all of their recycling in the bin? It's a bit of a dilemma. I own a plastic toothbrush, and I have absolutely no intention of switching to a wooden one, because the feeling of wood against my teeth makes me gag. Also, don't they get soggy? Whenever I cut up veggies, which is every day, I set aside the scraps for my compost bin. But the thing is, I don't have a compost bin. I do this out of habit, and sometimes I contemplate just throwing them in the garden, but I don't want it to end up stinky, so they end up just going in the trash. I sew for a living, every day. I stitch up someone else's split jeans or hem someone else's dress, which has left me with a huge pile of my own clothing awaiting repairs. I know it won't take me very long, but quite honestly, I just don't want to do it. I eat a plant-based diet, a vegan diet, whatever you want to call it. And I love animals. I save the bugs in my pool, and I even prompted a rescue of a dehydrated grasshopper the other day. I really hope he's doing okay. But I have a problem. Caterpillars. I refuse to spray or kill them, but some of my favorite plants have been absolutely desiccated because of these little guys. So my ingenious solution is to scoop them up and throw them over the fence.
Send him to Davy Jones' locker.
I have no idea what happens to them over there, but I like to think that the grass is greener on the other side. Well, that is just a load off of my chest. To end this episode, I have a challenge for you. Send me your anonymous eco-confessions through Instagram @SeemsFabricated, and I just might share them on a future episode. I'm Lily, and this has been the podcast Seems Fabricated. Thank you so much for tuning in. Remember to like, subscribe, and share this podcast with your eco buddies. I will see you next week with the podcast episode, Species Extinction Caused by Fashion, where I explore the effects of cotton growing in the Amazon rainforest, pink dolphins in China, and our own beloved Australian animals. This podcast is available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcast.